1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4.
Welcome back to another episode of the Immigrants and Exiles series, recorded at the Beachcomber Café in St. Kilda. Get ready for some history lessons on the impacts of war, on Italian repopulation of the planet, and on citizen historians, all of which brings to light the colour and wonder of migration. Through stories retold and benign memories shared between generations, we hear how sentimental bonds are forged between the original adventurers and their descendants. But we also discover how the offspring listening are inevitably infected by an incurable disease, a niggling sense of their own displacement, of cultural deprivation, and even loss of identity, because part of them belongs elsewhere. And so, communicable nostalgia, an intense desire for a fictional place never experienced, is born and grows. And now a musical interlude. The excerpt you'll hear today is from a song titled Runaway, written by Walter Musolino and Davide Musolino. Over time we have ended up recording lots of versions of this song. This particular version can be heard in full at the end of today's podcast. Enjoy!
Post-war, 3 out of every 10 Italians went back for good. Okay?
Awful better, awful
Sorry?
worse. Yep.
They went back permanently. They returned to Italy permanently.
Yeah.
Okay? The Australians let them in.
Yeah.
The Italians were grateful. When they got naturalised, they stood in front of the cameras with their citizenship certificate and smiled. And they were good little migrants, Arthur. Nobody would... I think people are afraid to say, I didn't like it here, I was unhappy. But my life got to a point where I couldn't go back. My kids were here, they were starting to grow up. What am I going to do? You know, there's no way I can go back. Did your parents ever express the desire to go back? Did they? Because look, in your case, the house was blown up. Did your mum still have a house?
Yeah, but you have to imagine that she came from a small island.
Okay, we're talking about Alicudi or something.
Alicudi.
Yeah.
A subsistence style of living.
Sure.
You can imagine families, or a group of families. And can you imagine my grandfather? His surname was Taranto. He married someone called Taranto. This island was full of people who were related to each other in one way or another, right? Some not quite so closely. So this is the place that you're coming from. And obviously the drive for my mother to come to Australia was simple. After the war, my grandfather was already here. But you see, my grandfather didn't make a success of his life. He viveva. But you know, he never ever made it. He was a gentle person, probably not forceful in making his way, and his language was not, you know, anything to shake up about. But the reality is, some migrants actually had life in Australia without speaking English. Well, they hear it. I mean, my grandfather used to listen to the radio and listen to the horse races. I couldn't understand a word of it. Right? He knew exactly what was happening at the race, but he didn't speak good English. Right? But look, they found a better life regardless of that, which really was made by their kids, really. That's life. And people did go back. Even modern day Italians did the same thing. When I say modern day, maybe back in the late 60s, early 70s, they came out here. They go, no, this is not for us, and they went back.
They go,
right? This young couple. You know, another economic reality, really.
Well, look, Walter's parents and my parents, they didn't have an economic reason to leave Italy. Okay, maybe that makes a difference. They came looking for some. My dad was certainly on some kind of adventure. Okay, he wanted to see how far he could go. It didn't work out. But you know, they often expressed my mother in particular wanted to be back in Italy until the end, when she just gave up. You know, she just despaired and gave up and resigned herself to being in Australia and staying here. And I can understand that some places, some situations, you don't think about Italy because you've got, like you said, a rocky island outcrop with 1,000 people living on it, and you don't want to go there. But so yeah, I understand. There's a difference, isn't there? Your parents too were a bit like that. They didn't have to leave. They could have stayed. There were other forces maybe pushing them to come here.
Yes, that's true.
And,
But, sorry, Walter, if you don't mind interrupting, but it's interesting you raise the issue of l'avventura.
Yeah.
My take on this is, and with due respect to what you're saying about your parents and Walter's parents, when people say, sono venuto per un'avventura, I came here for an adventure, I do not bloody believe it. I mean, of course there are examples where that is true, but some people want to deny that the stomach was empty, that they had desires for better life, which we spoke about. And the adventure, of course, was part of that. But, the need, the necessity is a huge driving force.
Would have been.
For the majority
The
of
stomach may have been empty in terms of not being able to achieve those satisfactions. Perhaps not formally empty, materially empty, but because knowing Moreno's dad and having read about him, I could see that he couldn't find the freedom to be himself back in the small town community of San Ginese. He had an older brother who criticised him for being a bit of a lad, a guy who was attractive to ladies and who loved the good life whenever he could get it, and he wouldn't knuckle down and be obedient and follow the rules. So his dad was probably hungry for freedom, in that sense of adventure, not being I suppose gigolo or something. So when he comes here, he worked bloody hard like everybody else, without knowing exactly where it's going to lead. So. And in my parents' case, I know that my dad tried for 3 years desperately in Rome to keep his mum there with him because he wanted to stay in Italy. But in the end, she wanted to come to Australia because 2 of her daughters had come here. And given the fact that he couldn't marry my mum, there were 2 important reasons why he thought, well, we're going to leave sort of significant futures which will present their own challenge if you're not going to be able to be married, and your future de facto's parents and brothers are not happy with that situation.
So I better move out of here.
That's right. So they come to Australia, and he comes to Australia, I couldn't believe it, with £27 sterling only. So no prospects except, well, we're here, rimbocchiamoci le maniche, let's get down to it, roll up our sleeves and work. And it's occupational therapy survival. When you can
as
survive.
You say, as Moreno also said, there are various reasons.
Various reasons.
It feels like it's an adventure, but there are driving forces as well.
You could almost say that you don't come for a better life. You come for a life, because maybe over there you didn't have a life. Like your dad no longer had a house because it got blown up, right?
The whole village got blown up.
Yeah, well, there you go, the whole village. That's it. So, in a sense, he's coming for a life and to build a life, because Italy is not offering him a life, basically. So even calling it a better life is could be a misnomer. In my parents' case, I really don't know. I don't know, because the people they left behind, their peers, they all had children, they lived in houses, they went on holidays to the seaside in summer, they had cars, they worked, they got pensions, they watched television, soccer matches, they sat
ad infinitum.
They sat in the bar at night and talked to their friends. They died surrounded by the people they'd known all their lives too. And all the people they'd known went to the funeral.
You're talking about Italy, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Let's really look at the reality of that, because the reality is the post-war, that blossoming, right?
Yes.
It cost us sorely.
Early 60s. My dad, if he'd waited another 3 years, he wouldn't have come.
No, but the reality is, those Italians who partook of the, I suppose, economic explosion, the benessere, etc., was at the expense of the migrants. Those migrants who left a vacuum,
Well, they
a
did.
space for all the others, one, to steal their houses, to usurp all of their properties, which happened.
It did
right?
happen, yes.
It happened.
Yeah.
But it left those Italians to luxuriate in, mi faccio una macchina, mi faccio la seconda macchina, blah, 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 you know, c'è tanto lavoro, right? So that is provided by the migrant. You know, if you look at statistics around migration from Italy, it's enormous. We're talking about Italy basically sent out Italians by the millions.
Tens of millions are.
There are tens of millions. Now, whether it went to America, Brazil, or Argentina, there's no place on earth that the Italians haven't been.
It's very much like the Irish too, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
Between 1870 and 1970, 26 million Italians were exported.
Now,
my uncle, who was a communist...
So you talked about the Irish. I just want to say something.
Go on.
There was some paper written many years ago which basically looked at the role of the Irish and the Italians in economies around the world. And the claim in this study was that the majority of the infrastructure in the United States, right, was built by the Irish and the Italians. Right? They got there, they did, you know, le maniche, right? Okay. They got in there, they bloody did the job. They're the ones who were walking across the girders, right?
In those photos.
You know, 20 or 100 stories up, right? Without the harnesses to set down. But, you know, that's not quite another story, but that's the reality. The Western world doesn't pay its due, but says, hey, these migrants helped us. See, this is one of the things that, for example, in our parties here, you know, I'm talking about political parties, in particular the Liberals, do not want to pay credence to that this place is built by migrants. You know, and this is like in America at the moment. What do we have? Trump saying, get rid of the migrants.
That's right.
Let's send them away, which has been attempted before. But what they don't know or haven't realised is one day Trump will wake up, look out at his Mar-a-Lago property, and the grass will be long. He says, hey, how come this grass is long?
And the place
you sent the Mexicans home. There's no one to do it, you know?
No white supremacist will cut your grass.
That's right.
Look, I have an uncle, a communist uncle. Actually, you might know this. He was a Psiupino. Have you heard of the Psiup? Partito Socialista Italiano di Unità Proletaria. They were to the left of the Communist Party in the 70s, okay? And he was head of the local chapter. He was secretary of the local chapter of the PSUP political party. And he always said that Italy, the nation, had failed its people by not offering people like my father, say, a proper living, okay? Work, housing, whatever, all that kind of business. It was a failure of the state. That's what migration is, a failure of the state. Because people don't want to leave. They don't want to go away. They'd like to stay where they are. You know, they want to live and die where they are, surrounded by things they know,
no, I agree.
people they know.
It's well said, you're
you know,
right.
So, and this is my communist uncle, who's still alive. Yeah, you know, so I understand.
That's a fact. You're right. People don't really want to leave.
No.
But as a consequence of migration, I mean, I don't know if we're going in the wrong direction here. You know, you might want to do cover other topics, but the consequence of migration is that Italy also ends up with a huge market.
It does.
And which they didn't want to acknowledge for a long time. Because, you know, in those days when they were going to set up the deputati and they were going to elect people, some Italians are going, right, they've left. But I kept saying, but people didn't want to understand it. You know, the pasta, okay, and that's the pasta, the cars, the blah, blah. Everything is Italian.
That's right.
Being bought by people in Argentina, in the United States, in Australia.
It's an enormous market, isn't it?
A huge market, right? So I think the Italians started to realise, without them, there's nothing. We don't have much. But anyway.
Because half the population of Italy is probably abroad now. You know, you've got 60 million in Italy, you've got 30 million
easily,
and their descendants.
Easily.
Approximately 75 million people in Italy now.
Okay.
About 12 million, roughly, extracomunitari.
Okay.
And although people, when I was there last year, were legitimately, I thought, complaining about illegal immigration, they were complaining mainly not in terms of the fact that a lot of these people, whether it's from Asia or from Africa, were doing menial jobs, working in construction, but rather that there were so many others that the government wasn't helping in terms of social welfare or housing, who were just wandering the streets, and not causing trouble, but perhaps trying to sell knockoff Omega watches in front of stalls in Florence or wherever, where generations of Italian have made a living, because those stalls are their street shops, and tourists
the pop-up stores.
And tourists would run away because there's somebody trying to sell them a knockoff, and they're saying we can't even get the local council to come and create some kind of order here. It's just socially, it's chaotic.
I think what you're saying is really important, because if we go back, let's go back 2,000 years, right? The Roman Empire, right? The Roman Empire. Are you distracted by something? Is it a skirt? It must be.
Stop it, Walter. Come on. Listen to Arthur.
It's summer.
Arthur,
Keep that microphone erect, will you? Anyway.
Come on.
Anyway, so the Romans, right?
Yeah.
Their empire was multicultural, whatever you want to call it, right? If you went to Rome, there would have been black people, brown people,
imagine Peter
and
Dutton
they were also citizens. They became citizens, right, of Rome, right? So, what are we talking about?
I know.
They were able to accept people because really there was a reason for that. They needed slaves, just like we're talking about. Italy now has the Africans. They complain about it, but from farming communities right through the industrial complex, they go, this is good. We can underpay them. We can give them crappy housing. They mistreat them, right? And yet they're doing valuable work. But anyway,
and eventually they become Italian citizens, because there's not this, apart from in some extremist groups, there's not this drive to manipulate them to some kind of cause célèbre to sort of explain Italy's economic woes in terms of migrants, And it's unfortunately that we, in a kind of modern backwater, are allowing that to become an argument, like Trump's trying to resurrect it as an argument. This is completely BS, because in any case, there's always a relationship between your problems and you as the creator of those problems. So the Americans go into, sorry, this sounds like an aberration, I'm going off another direction, but I'm not. They go into Central America, South America, unsettle governments, put in the dictators or the right-wingers that they want, and then there's continual upheaval in those countries, and then they get upset when those people want to migrate away from that war zone.
Which they've created.
If you help settle people and you go for integration rather than, again, as Tony Abbott said recently, assimilation, where you've got to annihilate their identities, but you integrate them by embracing their identities, and then you can get what Ukraine Maria said, 500 or 600-year-old Albanian communities in southern Italy, or Greek communities that have been accepted, and they can still continue their languages and traditions in cooking, in folklorical festivals, and they have an attitude of welcoming others who arrive in the current flood of migration.
Walter, who is Ukraine Maria?
Ukraine Maria is this beautiful sounding woman who sent us a 10...
Who's been interviewed.
Yes, and we thought, how do we include her story of...
Okay, that's who she is. Because you just mentioned her out of the blue.
That's right.
The listeners listening today.
Yeah, she wrote to me and she said, "Would you like to hear my story?"
And
I
she
said,
told
"Yes,
us
in
the
10
story,
minutes, please." So she sent us a 10, 11 minute stimulating package of facts about going from northern Russia to Crimea, where her father was an engineer studying the applications of nuclear tactics to submarines, and engine development. And then she goes to Kiev, meets her husband, then the war breaks out, and they go to Italy with their kids to raise a family.
Oh, yeah, you're telling me.
And this is just settling down there last year, so I've got to get back to her and say, tell us more about how things are going. It stimulated, I was listening to the whole interview, or the analysis, I should say, that Morena and I did of her story, and I was listening to it the other day, And I thought, that's fantastic, all the things that she gave rise to in such a short 10-minute piece.
As a migrant.
As a migrant, yeah. And she said that there were business opportunities in Italy, but there was a kind of communitarian safety net. Not something that the state is doing for you, as we often talk about here, the welfare state, but that the community itself in which they lived understood how being self-help is being supportive of each other and building a civilization, building an economy, because you're building culture. And I thought, I wish that we would understand that,
Yeah, well, that's interesting.
Can I read you something?
Yes, please.
From my book. These are the opening lines of it, okay? This is from the first grotesque. I have some chapters that are a tragic story about a migrant, okay? The first one, the title is No Relatives Living, Friends Informed. I'll just read the first sentence. It's a long sentence. It's about a migrant in northeast Victoria who was a tobacco grower in the 1950s.
Myrtleford, or wherever.
Around that district.
Yeah.
The place is called Mitrefort.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Luigi Battistic, a Triestino, a native of Trieste, who has emigrated to Australia for a better life, on 17 February 1954 at 6:35 a.m. at the age of 28 years, has his head blown to pieces and blown off at Buffalo River in northeast Victoria, as the report to the coroner states, by an exploding 44-gallon petrol drum used for boiling water to make steam to humidify the cured tobacco in a kiln. Now that's just the introduction, okay? That's the start of the book. And I'm trying to make the point that he came for a better life. He comes from Trieste, which is, massive dockyards where they built ships. That was the heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He comes to this little farm in the Australian bush, gets his head blown off. How old is he? 28 years old. Okay, that's just an example.
Yeah, industrial accidents
of what can go
whatever.
wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a migrant's life, that's all.
Yeah.
That's all.
Look, the reality is that occurred throughout industry, even in Australia.
Sure.
We know about the Westgate Bridge and its collapse, right?
Yeah.
My
32
father-in-law was
dead.
working on there 2 weeks before its collapse.
Really?
He saw,
2 weeks before.
Yeah, 2 weeks before. He saw the engineers undoing bolts because they've got to align the spans, right?
Yep.
But short story is, he leaves. He had mates there who had worked on various construction sites with, whether it was refineries or not. That collapsed, killing, I can't remember the number.
32.
Yeah.
32, of which he went and visited one of them in hospital.
Yes.
Probably some others, but he recounts this, and this guy was just a total wreck.
Yep.
Being crushed by
Sure,
concrete.
sure.
But there's migrants, hard at work, doing what they need to do, being told to do certain things, and
The Australian authorities, in this case the police, in the police report, you can go read it, it's there, they say, shorthand, no relatives living, friends informed, nothing found in possession but suitcase with private papers taken from hut and hut locked. This is like his obituary. This is Luigi's obituary, okay? No relatives living, friends informed. That's the extent of his life. That's the conclusion of his life.
Well, there's no
When I
understanding.
read stuff like this, I thought, we don't talk about those migrants, okay? We do not talk about those migrants. Like you said, people don't even want to know about it. They'll walk out if they're being shown a film about it,
Yeah, but these are not people. So that walkout of that film, the Retold medallion, is not about saying, "Oh, these people died," right? But this is just lack of making a success of themselves, right?
Yeah.
That's what that's about.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the story of
and my
industrial
dad,
accidents,
look, my
etc.
dad, for me it's more than an industrial accident, but people will read it the way they want. That's I can't do anything about that, that's fine. My dad, for the last 2 years of his life, would ask me and my brother, did I do the right thing in coming to Australia? And what do you think we said?
He wanted confirmation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what do you think he said? We said, course you did.
Of course.
Of course, look at us.
Yeah.
We've got families, we've got a house, we've got cars, we've got work. You know, of course you did the right thing. What are you going to tell him? You know?
Well, hang on, does that mean you didn't believe that?
That's
I wasn't sure.
good man, Arthur.
I
That
wasn't
man.
sure.
I was just about to say, my dad asked me the same question towards the end.
And you said, of course you did, Dad. Look at the business you built.
Yes, I gave him a list of facts.
I could too.
And
I did too.
And I meant it.
Oh, you meant it. I didn't mean it.
Yes, because
I didn't mean it.
What would I compare it to?
Yeah.
Say, oh yes, of course, Dad, because if you'd stayed in Italy, this would have happened.
Yeah.
Or no, Dad, I have to agree with you. You're a failure here because if you'd stayed in Italy, these things would have happened.
Yeah.
I don't have a clue. He doesn't have a clue what would have happened. It's
No,
a hypothetical.
it's not possible to know.
Hypotheticals
Yeah,
are ridiculous. And I just looked at the facts and listed them for him. But I'm sure that deep down, his sense of disorientation, he's buried in Carlton Cemetery, and as you say last week, cemeteries are welcoming. Or you
Yes.
said this a few weeks back. And Italian cemeteries are welcoming, right? You've had the prospect of still belonging to the community because, like the little village that Rosemary's parents were from, I love going to the cemetery down the bottom of one of the roads, just 200 metres away, because you meet other people and you chat to them about their relatives.
You
It's
mean
a
the
social
living.
gathering place.
You mean the living,
You see the
yeah.
people who are
Sorry, did I
buried
say
there?
talking to the dead? I hope not. They can talk to the dead too. But it's quiet and it's nice. And when people meet, they'd say, "Oh, you've been to the so-and-so? Yes, she was a great lady. She did this and that." So you're living the past. It's part of
You're
your history.
surrounded by the
You're
people,
surrounded, yeah.
the dead who were living there
Yeah.
alongside your ancestors and knew them, or your parents or your grandparents.
When I go to the Carlton Cemetery, and I haven't been for a long time, I get really angry and frustrated that it doesn't mean anything to me. My parents, or their cremated remains are there, but it doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's like they're in a locker room in
An
a
Italian
railway
cemetery-
station, you know.
Well, an Italian cemetery is something else, Walter.
I know.
It's fantastic.
I know.
Hang on,
I'd
we
like to-
talking about Italian as in Italy or
As in-
here?
In
As
Italy.
in Italy.
In
Right,
Italy.
yeah.
In Italy.
Because here it's just like a place where there are Jewish people, there are Greek people, there are Russian people, there are Orthodox,
Yeah.
non-Orthodox, atheistic people, whatever, buried, and
This is an interesting idea.
it's kind of mass anonymity. And
Well, that's what death is. I
The
mean,
beauty
you know,
of the cemetery.
it's inevitable, but
Yeah, it's inevitable. It doesn't matter where, what colour, etc. Everyone is annihilated, and everyone is on the one plateau.
yeah.
I've walked through the cemetery in my village in Italy, okay, with somebody who knows the place better than me. And it's a narrative. I mean, this person did this and that and the other thing with that guy over there. You know, you hear the story, the history of the village is in the cemetery.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
But
I can't
it's not
get that here.
announced, but
Yeah.
it's there only if someone can weave the web.
Of course,
Because
yes.
you can't read it from a headstone.
Of course, no,
right? It's
no.
impossible.
No, you can't. You can't.
Cemeteries are peculiar.
Yeah.
They can tell you so much, but it's
Yeah.
only if you meet the living there they can
Yeah,
tell you more.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, it may not be the truth. What you're hearing may not be the truth.
Of course.
You can't swallow the hook and go, oh yeah, that's what it is. you know.
But life is full of sort of rhetoric, isn't it, rather than truthfulness. And anyway, whatever happens to us every day, even when we leave this interview session today, your description, my description, his description
That's right.
may not marry up.
Yeah, no, that's right.
How would you describe your relationship with Italy?
Okay, yeah, I can go there. Well, we'll not discuss my mother, but look,
No, we
my
haven't done your
my
mother's, right?
relationship with Italy. Okay, I've visited quite a number of times. I've taken my
Why?
kids there. Yeah, I know you'd asked that.
Your dad
Because-
doesn't even have a house there.
Right now, I know you're the
I'm
you're
fixated
the
on the
beta.
house.
You're the beta, right?
that's
Yeah,
With
yeah.
the, with
On
the
a fishing
key.
trip.
Does the key still exist, by the way? No. What a
Probably
shame.
it's probably, why would that be a shame?
I don't know, it would
it's
be an
only
emblem
a
of
piece of
something.
iron. It's only a piece
But
of iron.
no, it's
right?
full of meaning.
Arthur's a pragmatist.
Pregnant with meaning.
I love
that key.
hoarding stuff, right? And
Yeah.
maybe if I had the key, I'd
What a
keep it.
shame.
Right? But then my wife would say, Elvira, she's a pragmatist. Go,
Yeah.
listen, Arthur, why have you got this? Just cut
Oh,
it out, you know.
deliver
But
me
it-
from pragmatists.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
go on.
but
Go on.
no, I think it's the right way because you can't keep everything.
No, of course not.
But anyway, look.
course not.
So why do I go? Why?
Yeah.
Because I feel attacked. Like, for example, just give you some examples. I visit the obvious places to visit, and I don't do it all the time. Is my father's hometown or village.
They've rebuilt it.
And my mother's island. I call it my mother's island. It's not ever island.
It's your mother's island. Of course it is. Yeah.
Now, when I go there,
Yeah.
or have been, I've been there a couple of times, I look out at the ocean.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And these Mediterranean oceans are so beautifully that velvet. I mean, obviously you have to be in a particular...
Yeah.
Aeolian Islands.
Yeah.
Oh, I was amazed when I
like
was
this
there.
velvet, right?
Yes.
Now, I felt something, and I was not born there.
You felt
Right.
something, Arthur.
Absolutely. You know, that feeling that you get. It's not a nostalgia, because nostalgia relies on you being there.
No,
right?
it doesn't.
No.
Nostalgia is actually a feeling, a yearning for a place you've never known or been to. That's the definition. Okay? Nostalgia. It's a fictional place that doesn't exist, and you feel, or thing, or event, or occasion, and you feel a yearning to
but
possess
that
it and to
yearning
be
comes, yeah, look, okay, you know,
It's
you
not
can look-
fictional, Arthur. It's not fictional. It's real. It's
It is
internal.
real, absolutely.
The only reality, like the existentialists said at the beginning of the 20th century, is the reality of your subjectivity, right? So if you're feeling a calling to a place, right, even when you're there, you feel for some reason or other a connection. And someone goes, oh, that's just you being romantic or nostalgic. It's real for you. For whatever reason, it's real.
And the same with my father's home. Anyway, look, you know,
This
there-
guy's
there
being
was-
a pragmatist, Arthur.
Sorry?
This guy's being a pragmatist over here. You just dismissed pragmatists.
Yeah. But, you know, and so why do I go back? That's where it started. Because I feel there is still a connection there. Yeah. You know, when my kids go there, I've taken them there a couple of times, they've been there on their own. They still speak Italian, their version of Italian. It's reasonably good, quite good. And they go there, similar reasons, but of course their reasons are slightly different. You know, there's a dilution of, you know, that,
Yeah, of course.
that nostalgia. You know, they could say, oh, listen, my great-grandparents came from there, or my grandparents, sorry, came from their grandparents. But look, the reality is they still feel something by going to Italy. Otherwise they wouldn't go. But it's not the only place they've travelled to. You know, we've travelled to other places in the world. But of course, if you travel to Vietnam, you're not going to feel nostalgia. No. But what you can feel, right, is the anger, right? You know, you have feelings, you know, because you understand what's happened
Would
there.
you say, you said children?
Yeah. Well, I
Are they
call them
nostalgic?
children because
They can't be nostalgic. They've never lived there, have they? They visited. How can you be nostalgic for a place you've visited? Eh?
yeah, but it's ingrained in you. I'll
It's
tell you,
ingrained.
It's ingrained. You
It's
know, for
ingrained.
example, when
Is there something in the DNA?
Oh, I don't. No, I think it's a social fabric. Like, for example, as a kid growing up, we'd sit around the dinner table at my grandmother's, my father's mother.
Yeah.
And we would sit around that table. It wasn't just to eat; it was to discuss.
Of course.
And there were the stories that were told, right, around that dinner table. This is not the TV dinner society.
No.
That go, oh, listen, Mum, what's in the fridge? Grab it,
Yeah.
go into the lounge
Bang.
room, pour your cornflakes with some milk or whatever you have. This is a social gathering. And there we learnt the stories, or I certainly did, of what happened in the war. What was it like to live in the village? Now,
So-
I didn't experience these things, but I heard the stories. That's why reading stories is valuable to human beings.
So you ended up feeling some kind of nostalgia for a
You're
place
linked,
you'd
there's a
never
link.
seen,
Yeah,
never
yeah,
been
absolutely,
to,
absolutely.
a place you'd heard about.
Yeah.
You could feel
It's
nostalgic.
this
It
mythical
is.
place, right?
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautiful, Arthur.
But to see it in the flesh,
Yeah.
so to speak, in the rocks, to see
Yeah,
the rock,
yeah, and
to
the
see
sea.
road,
Oh, fuck, the sea,
For example,
sorry. Yeah.
with my father's hometown,
Yeah.
when I spoke to the locals there at the time when I was much younger,
Yep.
I could name particular streets, right?
Yeah.
And places.
And that's
they
how
look at me and go, how do you know that?
That's right. Yeah.
Because I'd heard about them, you know. I knew that my grandfather used to read the newspapers to the village
Yeah.
in this particular area of the
Yeah.
village
Yeah.
called Los Caricatos, they called
Yes,
it.
yes.
And so there was a linkage.
Yeah.
And people would work in the streets,
Yep.
working that grass that I was telling you
Yes,
about.
yes.
So I felt the nostalgia, because when I go there,
Yeah.
I say, wow, this is the real thing,
Yeah.
like the authentic thing that I'd heard about.
You know, I know things about our village that probably no one else in the world knows now. I've written about them
Because they've
in my
died,
2
yeah.
books. They've died.
Yeah.
Things my dad in particular told me, and I've written about in the book. I've recorded them in the 2 books. And one example is this figure of La Bettina.
La?
Bettina,
Bettina.
Bettina.
Yeah.
I've never been able to find out where it comes from, but I know it's a Lucchese term from Lucca, okay? It is death, represented by a woman, okay? This is like, and he told me that death had visited him. This was a few weeks before he died, you know. He told me, ho visto la Bettina, I seen la Bettina. I remember asking my uncle, he goes, I'm not so sure, you know. My uncle was in his mid-70s at the time, and he didn't know really what I was talking about. So, yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
Seeing
La,
the
La
real thing.
Bettina, if I can pose a potential origin.
Yeah.
La Bête in French
Yes,
is the beast. So La Bettina.
la
could
bête.
protect-
Yeah, la
Yeah,
bestia.
it
Yeah,
could be.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe. I've found one reference to it on the internet about it being a local dialect word for death, but that's all. In Lucca and the district, you know.
You'd have
That's-
to wonder why a female is meant to
Of course.
represent death. You know,
Yeah.
there's something curious there. But anyway, that's for another time.
It is. It's another
time.
podcast.
It's another podcast.
podcast. I know.
A lot of.
So
What's the
you
next
felt. No,
option?
you talked. I love what you said about your description of your relationship with Italy is lovely.
Yeah, well,
This is
even
this
our-
is
It is moving. It is moving. I
Even-
mean, I found
It
it
is.
moving.
Yeah.
Right?
that's what I think people like us
Yeah.
feel a sense of, despite the convenience of Australia, the comfort of Australia, and a lot of cultural things that appeal to us, you know, we still feel a sense of displacement
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
because our myths aren't here. Now my parents have gone and my myths have moved to Italy. I've got my kids here, I love them, and I've noticed that my daughter hasn't gone to Italy, but my son has with his wife. We've been a few times, and suddenly Italy is becoming part of their personal myth making.
Yes.
It's penetrated their subconscious, and you live it when you're there. Even the Aeolian Islands that I went to for the first time ever last year with my brother-in-law, who's from Stromboli, as I was saying. When I was on Salina, and I'm looking out onto the balcony and seeing sometimes in the morning, if the sky was grey, the sea was like ice, flat, and I thought, am I looking at a glacier?
Yeah.
You know, and then when it was sunny, it was deep blue
Yeah,
or
change.
green, and then I could see yachts, or I could hear Germans in a little near the port, you know, talking loudly, or perhaps not so loudly, but the quiet made it echo across the water. And just walking through the streets and steadily having long conversations with people that I didn't know, sharing the emotional feelings of well-being. Even if they were complaining about, oh, it's the off-season now, I'm not going to make as much money now the tourists have left. Now we're talking about this and that, and then I see the beauty of the architecture, the fantastic colours, and the artwork on walls. And there are cats everywhere, you know, doing whatever the cats do, sleep or poor smelling, and there are people that you don't quite like, look a bit strange, maybe they're petty mafia types, but even that's part of the dangers of the place, you know. But somehow we all coexist. And I come back here and it's like, oh, Dutton talks about African gangs. I'm supposed to be scared. So, well, okay.
That's what they're promoting.
Yeah, there may be African gangs. There are sort of Vietnamese gangs. There are Aussie gangs. You know,
absolutely.
in the police, there are people who are criminals, and I feel disturbed by that because I live in Hawthorne. You know, I don't feel like that there. Even when I was living in Rome, and I was living in one of the gangland areas, and other guys, if I went one suburb away, would confront me and they'd say, "Oh, you're going to see, Eliud Zagis. Oh, you Walter." I go, yeah. I didn't feel threatened. I knew what the password was. Mention the person who lives there, you know, and then you could go through.
You can go through.
Yeah, and there are rules to respect, and you can live. And here it's like there are no rules. It's a jungle out there when we're in a supposedly first world country. I'm confused here.
Aren't we all? But look, just going back to my mother and
Yes.
so the island.
Your mother?
Yeah, my.
I was going to ask about your mother.
But just before we leave the idea of being in Italy, so this is how I interpret, and this is how I felt. When I was looking out at, for example, Filicudi is the next island that I can see looking out in that direction, which is east, and the sun going down. What was going through my mind to magnify the idea of being nostalgic, right, was the fact that I was seeing what my mother would have seen. So I'm seeing what my mother saw.
Yep.
And so even though they're my eyes, it was like, hey, this is what mum saw. This is
Exactly.
how she lived, right? And that's important.
It is,
right?
because normally, okay, you're born in Australia, your mother's born here, say you're Australian, you grow up, your mother's there, you know everything she saw. You know her environment, whereas this is new. This is an environment you never experienced before, because your mother did, she experienced it, then she came here and she had other experiences. So you're familiar with her experiences here, but not with the experience of her
but
past life.
But you hear the stories. You do hear
Of course,
the stories.
of course. So, tell us about your mum then. Did
Okay,
she feel exactly like your dad?
No. First of all, the islands didn't suffer the Second World War as much.
Yeah.
Other than the fact, German.
But how
plane
did
went-
she feel? There are always reasons. I always reckon there are reasons why people feel, but what did she feel?
You're talking about being in Australia?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think she was quite okay with it because she understood the deprivation of being on that island.
Yep.
It was a subsistence
Yep.
life. And a lot of Alikurani came here to
Yep.
Australia.
Yep.
A lot of them became fruiterers.
Yes.
Some didn't, right, obviously.
Yep.
But she felt an attachment, yes, but she didn't say, hey, I definitely want to go back.
What
Whereas
was
her
the
brother,
attachment? How did she feel? What was the attachment she felt?
Look, she could tell the stories of the place, but she didn't necessarily want to go back.
No.
For a visit, yes, right? The same with my father. Right? For a visit, no problem.
Yep.
You can always press the eject button and you're back here, right? So she wasn't obsessed with the island.
No.
She would speak about it.
Yep.
Yeah, this is when I was a young girl,
Yep.
I'd walk around barefoot and, blah, blah, and all that sort of stuff. But, she came here approximately the same year as my father, 1948.
Yep.
And of course, the question everyone asks is, how did they meet? Well, they didn't meet in Italy. That's not possible.
No.
Because they're from two different parts of Italy.
Yep.
Okay. And so they met here. In fact, my father proposed to my mother the day after he saw her. She opened the door,
Yep.
thinking that he was at someone's house, which he was at the right house, but didn't expect to see my mother. The next day, he proposed to her. How
Wow.
that is possible in real life, but that's the story.
He was a bold man.
He was a bold man.
Audacious. Yeah.
But anyway, so mum worked in factories, like as migrants did. My father-in-law worked in factories. His brothers worked in factories.
Yep.
At some point, they say, hey, listen, I've got to do something different, and they do.
Yeah.
So mum worked in factories, but and fruit shops. She worked at fruit.
Yeah.
Famously, pounds, shillings, and pence. Go
Yep.
back to that. If you ever suffered pounds, shillings, and pence,
Yeah.
right? Which
Yeah.
we all did. She was in a fruit shop. She was serving. She was young. people would ask her, the Aussies would ask, the bananas, the tomatoes, blah, 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 blah. At the end she'd say, oh, it's so many pounds, so many shillings, so many pence. I go, no, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I said, look, she did it on paper. She knew the system so well.
Yeah.
And sure enough, there was the sum. They go,
Yes.
how did she do that? Because you've got to be rattling off all of that mental arithmetic
Tell me
around.
something. Is Russo a name from the
Russo,
islands?
yeah, it is.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
'cause
we
we
say
had a-
Russo, but I say Russo, right?
Russo, yeah. Russo. I mean, there were footballers called Russo.
Yeah.
There's a shop on the corner of our street where we've lived there all our lives. Fruit shop, Russo. Was the family.
Definitely from the islands.
Yeah.
In fact, more likely from Alicudi.
Yeah.
Right? Uncles of hers had fruit shops on the other side of town.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
those shops are still there, running.
Yes.
But so Mum, once she was married, I suppose what happened was the attachment to the island was even less. In fact, Mum didn't speak Sicilian. From the moment she met my father,
Yeah.
she didn't speak Sicilian at all. In fact, Mum and Dad suddenly spoke Italian, if I can put that with the little rabbit ears
Of course,
either
it's
side
a
of
lovely
that.
historical reference thing. Yeah, that's good.
To get along with each
Yeah, of
other,
course,
they had to
yeah.
sort of somehow accommodate.
Yeah.
And she spoke my father's dialect a lot better
Yes.
than I certainly do. I can't speak Sicilian. I can understand Sicilian.
Sure.
I can express some things in Sicilian.
Yeah.
In my dad's hometown village dialect, there are the odd words that I know, right? But I couldn't have a conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can see that time is running out.
Time is always running out for all of us.
What's happened? The Apple CEO is sort of like telling us that we've got not much memory left.
Oh no, there's plenty of memory, but it's been a fascinating discussion.
I mean,
Arthur.
we really haven't even broached the idea of being a child growing up in Australia.